we're in business now and we can officially get started. So I'm
Okay,
going
I'm,
to go
I'm going
ahead.
to unmute myself.
Yes, thank you so much for your support. Okay, well, everyone that I have here, I see some familiar faces and I also see some new faces. Thank you so much for your time tonight for joining me and welcome to this very important topic, which is before you build, there are pitfalls, many, but I'm going to focus on 5 pitfalls that can tank your dental startup and how to avoid them. And this is something that the framework and the mistakes that I've seen doctors make, it's applicable whether you are launching a practice from the ground up or if you are also doing an acquisition or taking over an existing practice. My goal is to spend the next 45 minutes or so going over some of these pitfalls and how you can actually avoid them. Um, and towards the end, I want to make sure that I open the floor for any questions that are most specific to your journey, to your startup, to your questions. I'm here to support you. And I prepare every month a content. Last month, I had an entire webinar on the journey of a dental acquisition and the framework and the process to be able to successfully acquire and build a practice, become a first-time practice owner of an acquisition practice. And I've had a lot of dentists ask me, what are some of the things that you see dentists constantly make mistakes? And there's a lot of mistakes, but I want to focus on 5 and give you some strategies and tools on how to avoid them if you are early in your journey, or how to turn things around if you are already in the middle of your project. For those of you who are new to me and my community, my name is Maritza Duran, and I am the founder of MDent Consulting Services. What we do at MDent is basically support and guide first-time practice owners, again, whether it's an acquisition or a build out from scratch. I am adjunct faculty at Temple University, certified leadership coach, a lot of titles and a lot of things that I've devoted myself to earning because I enjoy working with dentists like yourselves. But just to summarize it, I've helped over 500 dentists acquire or launch their first dental practices, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. Before I became the founder and owner of MDent, I helped one dentist launch 15 dental practices from scratch, and I became regional manager to the 15 locations, and I went through the transition of becoming a DSO. So needless to say that I have had a lot of hands-on, and I've worn every hat in a dental practice. And now as a business owner, first-time practice owner, business owner myself, not practice owner, but as a new first-time business owner, I share the same struggles, the same fears, the same hesitations, the same limitations that a lot of you face, right? Which is, how do I manage payroll and all these other things that become scary when we are launching our very first business. So I'm excited to spend, again, these next 45 minutes with you guys and share some of those common pitfalls and, again, how to avoid them. What I discovered over the years, having helped over 500 dentists, is that there are success leaves tracks, but so do the mistakes that a lot of dentists make. And again, today I want to be able to share with you the framework that I developed and created my program around, that has been able to predictively allow my clients to reach a level of profitability and success faster as first-time practice owners. And I'm going to be able to share those things with you today. So based on these pillars or this framework, what I want us to start with is the foundation of our conversation tonight, which basically comes from the 5 pillars or 6 pillars of practice ownership success. And to give you more details about how I structure the framework and the process that I follow with my clients and what I've seen works, and the mistakes that a lot of the doctors that don't follow this framework make, comes from not understanding how to divide and conquer between the pre-opening phase of starting your dental practice, or what I typically call the intangibles. So everything that happens prior to you getting access to your practice, again, whether you're doing a build up from scratch or if you are acquiring an established practice, the intangibles, the things that you don't feel, see, or are able to just physically touch are going to make or break or tank your practice ownership success. So I divide my framework into the pre-opening phase and the post-opening phase, or what we call the measure of success, which is a full schedule. All that we want as first-time business owners is to hit certain milestones, and we take on a huge risk when we decide to start a business. For you as a dental clinician, you have to wear many hats, and being a clinician and being a business owner requires two separate sets of skills that a lot of times you need to bridge that gap. And that's one of the things that through this framework, I've been able to help my clients clarify and put into perspective as they're going through their startup or acquisition journey. And so just the foundation of our talk tonight is going to be around the pillars of ownership success, but keeping in mind that from all of these different areas that we need to focus on as business owners, and this translates into any business. It doesn't need to be specific to dental. Any business usually has this hierarchy of needs. You need to start with a vision. You need to surround yourself with the right people. You need to have a good understanding of your numbers. You need to constantly be developing and yourself and training yourself in all the different aspects that, again, to bridge the gap between clinical excellence, which you already acquire in dental school, but now that wearing the CEO hat as a business owner, influence, which is another form of marketing. Everything that you do is marketing, as Fred Hoyal says, but in systems, all the repeatable things that work that you want to make sure that you maintain within your business, because they are giving you predictable outcomes when you do things a certain way. And so you want to develop systems. Now, there is the pre-opening hierarchy of needs that we divide the intangibles. What do you need to do? What questions, what systems you need to implement? Who do you need to influence? What type of training, what type of numbers do you need to manage pre-opening? Who is going to be your team of experts pre-opening? And the most important foundation is, what is my vision? What is it that I want before opening? The post-opening, again, one more time, the tangibles is the outcome. It's the reward. It's being profitable. It's being able to break even. It's being able to lower your attrition as the patients are transitioning and you're going after you close on the deal. It's being able to retain your employees. It's a full schedule. It's making sure that you are able to see or reap the rewards or harvest from all of the planting of the seeds of what happened during the intangible phase. So this is my success framework. And again, I have all processes and systems and checklists and all of the things that I help my clients do. And I'm going to share with you a lot of 5 of those pressing pitfalls and things that really hurt the outcome of whether or not you're able to profit and be a profitable and fulfilled practice owner. My goal is to help and support those who are first-time practice owners. Again, I work with one dentist that started with one office, and we built 15 practices together before I started MDent. And I will tell you, I enjoy the process a lot more when it was just like a small private practice setting, a lot more than when we have just become a DSO. And so who is this for? This is, again, for those of you who are aspiring practice owners, again, whether you're thinking of doing it as a startup or as an acquisition. If you're an associate that is tired of working for someone else and getting the materials and the things that you don't enjoy working with, right? And all these production caps. Or if you're dreaming of practice ownership and you're stuck in the analysis paralysis. What do I do next? Who do I reach out to? And there's an overwhelming amount of information that it's now available out there. But at the same time, without a compass, without a guide or a GPS, if you will, and someone in the passenger seat as you're getting behind the wheel through this journey, you are bound to making mistakes that would be costly. And through those costly mistakes comes the stress of not being able to meet your own personal expectations, your family's expectations, and also those of your patients and your team members that now rely on you and your leadership in order for this business, this office to be the driving vehicle for everyone's success, right? So let's dive into what the 5 pitfalls are that I have found in my experience. Are some of the pressing mistakes that a lot of dentists make. And I'm going to share with you some of the stories of examples of how I've seen those things affect dentists in the past so that you can, again, turn things around and avoid them. And ultimately, as I said before, I am a very conversational person. This is challenging for me as it is to just prepare the material and do this. I love having conversations. So I'm very approachable, easy to talk to. You can ask me any questions towards the end, and I'm happy to. If you guys have the time, I want to be also respectful of people's time. You can stick around with me, and I will be more than happy to answer any pressing questions that you have. Or if you have any, someone from my team would be here, and I will be able to answer those closer to the end. But for now, let's get started and talk about what things do you need to do before you build. What are some of the mistakes others have made that you can learn from to avoid making costly mistakes for your dental practice? So the first pitfall that I see is not starting without a clear vision. You would never go into a road trip to a new destination, right, without a map or without a tour guide, because you want to optimize and the experience. You hire a tour guide. If you have people coming over for dinner at your house and you want to impress them and you want to make sure you have a successful outcome to your gathering or like your wedding or whatever it is, you hire someone that can help you and give you the recipe, and you follow the recipe so that you can have the desirable outcome. You have to start with what your vision is. The best way or way for me to describe this is in the wrong way. One of the pitfalls that I see one of my dentists, one dentist that I had a relationship with was when I started my career, when I first left my job as a regional manager, because again, I was a young mom. I had my first son. I was driving around 6 hours, 3 hours from one location to the other. And a lot of the younger associates that were working for the group that I used to work for were dreaming of opening their first practices, and they were stuck in the analysis paralysis, the fear of making mistakes. They were also young moms and wives and concern about whether or not, as a female, you can put together something like doing a build out or just hiring and managing contractors and dealing with the equipment vendors and all these things. And so I had gained a lot of exposure and experience having to work a lot with, throughout the build out and the things for my former employer. But in one of those instances, I was introduced to one of the associates that was opening her first practice. And when I first spoke to her, she said, I'm okay. I just, my father-in-law or someone helped me find this place. I'm just, my kids are growing up and I just want to control my schedule, right? That was the vision. The vision was that she wanted more freedom of her schedule. And someone in her family said, well, we'll help you find a location. And off she went to start her own practice, right? That to me was not a decision that came from a strong or clear vision and a plan that was going to be able to help her spend more time with her children. And that is exactly the outcome that she got, because one, it wasn't a purposeful or meaningful reason why she wanted to start the practice, for the wrong reasons. Because the reality is, it is a lot of sweat and tears and putting your kids to bed early, or making sure that you have things pending afterwards, or cleaning. It's business ownership, especially if you're starting a family, it's not glory. It is very, very intensive. And if you're hiring and if you're giving birth to more children, in this case, your employees and other people that depend on you and the patients, it's something that you have to take serious. And so you have to think of a CEO, and the vision cannot be something that is very short-sighted. Right now, my kids are small and I want to spend more time with them. Therefore, I'm going to take an $800,000 loan, sign a lease someplace, reach out to some insurance companies, and set my practice up. And the rest will follow. If you don't start with a clear vision, you are going to tank your chances of practice ownership success. So, team leadership payroll strategies are your new besties. You're going to need to create a plan for the long term, or your vision for the long term. Your kids are going to be growing and they're going to be going about their own thing. So something that it's more of a vision for their benefit or yours long term, rather than the short term fix of I need to spend more time with them, because that is an absolute lie to begin with. But that is one of those things, a mistake that I saw a dentist make, that really put her in a position where she had to close doors during the COVID period. And it's very sad, because again, this is a mother, a wife, a dentist who actually had dental student debt, signed a lease, and went through this entire process, and did not have a clear or strong vision for planning pre-opening, again, the intangible, and let alone how she was going to manage things later on. So for me, this is one mistake that I want all of you to learn from. Start with the end in mind, because you're going to want to reverse engineer your journey there. And if you don't know where you're going, you cannot expect your team, your contractors, your vendors, and everyone to know where they need to take you. And so as the captain of the ship or main driver of this thing, you need to be in a position where you are taking charge and acting as the CEO. And that requires for you to have a very clear vision of what you're going to be looking for. Okay. Pitfall number 2. And this is one that is very big, and I can always use the same case study, but I want to share with you what another mistake I see dentists make, which is skipping feasibility and location strategy. The same dentist that I was speaking about, basically her in-laws helped her find a location. Someone in the family is in real estate. And one of the things that was a true mistake for her was not doing market research, demographic research, to find alignment between who she was as a provider, the patients she was going to treat, the growth and the need in the area for her to open her practice or to create a strategy around it. And so without a feasibility study, you're basically gambling your success instead of building it strategically. To give you a perfect example, I have a dentist that is considering a space. And one of the things that after we've done the market research based on the demographic analysis, the square footage, how much of tenant improvements we're going to get, all of the details of the deal of the space itself, so that we can have, and we'll talk about that on my next mistake, is to divide and conquer again. How are we going to paint the picture and the strategy pre-opening? Planning to secure a smart location. And for those of you who are here who are doing an acquisition, this will be analyzing a lot of the things that the office is currently doing. If you are acquiring an established practice. And on my last month's webinar, I spoke a lot about the assessment and the analysis that need to be done to do like a practice valuation, to be able to understand all of those things. Again, the pre-opening, right? So the feasibility or, analysis of the practice and the location strategy is extremely important because the data tells the story and helps you prepare for your game plan. You're going to develop that. It's almost like writing your business plan as you go. You find your vision, who you want to treat, then you start looking for a location. Make sure it's a smart location. All of the data and the information are going to help you map out your strategy, and that becomes your business plan, which is one of the things that I love helping my doctors work with. So a beautiful space means nothing if local market doesn't support what you have. In the example of my doctor, the associate that worked for one of the groups that decided not to work with me back when I started consulting, after her in-laws found her the location and I had a conversation with her, I said, who have you networked with? What companies are in the area? How did you decide to open and choose this location? I don't know. Somebody, the real estate person in my family kind of knew the person, and I just went in with it because it was a plum chair. If someone had already started a practice there and it didn't work out, you want to make sure that they expanded and that they relocated and moved because they needed more space. They outgrew the space, and it's your starting practice. But you want to do your due diligence and find out what are some of the reasons why there is a plumbed, ready to go dental practice and so on and so forth. So really important pitfall and mistake I see dentists make is skipping the feasibility and location strategy. You go into the space and you like the area and you like the community, whatever it is, and you skip this part and then you start the practice and there are not enough patients to go around because the competition ratio is too saturated. Or you want to be able to treat and do more cosmetic dentistry or more comprehensive dentistry, and the market does not allow it. And this is one of the mistakes that I saw with this doctor. Her vision for her practice was a fee-for-service practice, and she signed up with some insurances that didn't negotiate the reimbursement. It was a lot of mistakes and things that she did, but the biggest mistake I saw, and this goes into another mistake, but was who she hired and how it was not in alignment with what the business model that she wanted to incorporate. So there goes basically pitfall number 2, skipping the feasibility, location strategy, market analysis, competitive analysis for the area that you are looking into is extremely important. And I want to make sure that you guys, because you're investing time in yourselves and in doing things the right way for you and for your family and for your patients and your team, that you do the steps that are required. Just to give you one last example on this one with my client that it's going on right now, we had a patient doctor ratio that was healthy, but still I want to make sure that there were no other little questionable things. So I reached out to a couple of contractors to say, are you working on any deals or any spaces there, any pending permits for a particular location that we don't know about, because we are just looking at the available space and we don't know what else is going on in the community, right? Because we're working with our broker, ideally with a dental specific one, rather than our husbands or father-in-laws or what have you that are in real estate residential and they're trying to do the commercial deals. Not big mistake. And so in one of the 2 contender locations, we noticed that, or I learned that there is an office that it's in the works that just filed for permits and it's about to start construction. So these are things that we use frameworks as part of the frameworks for that pre-opening phase that allow us to put our dentists in, to make their first shot of practice ownership the best that it can be, because you're protecting your asset and your investment. Pitfall number 3, and this is where I wanted to go specifically about underestimating the real startup budget. Remember how I said that we have two pillars, or two, the pre-opening and the post-opening, the intangibles and the tangibles. Pre-opening, we need to divide and conquer. We need to basically create a startup budget for the equipment, for the build out, for all of the things that are going to help you basically get the walls ready, or the house, if you will, right? The facility. And it's extremely expensive. The build out per square footage right now, with inflation and construction costs and all these things, are really out there. And a lot of contractors and people that are in the industry, there are a lot of change orders and things that make it where it is very unpredictable. So you have to take ownership and control of your spending and the budget, if you will, as you are selecting and working with vendors. And so part of the work that I do with my clients has a lot to do with systemizing and putting everything into a place where you know how much you're spending, and you know how much you're going to have left for what's important. And this is where underestimating the real startup budget comes. So a lot of doctors, and again, I, as a consumer, and I see this a lot, and I'm not trying to create any sort of like cultural or like gender specific things, but as a woman, we fall in love with visual things and pretty things and so on and so forth, and we shy away from the numbers. And when we do that, and I had a dentist that this happened to her. This was not a client of mine, but she was a friend and of a friend, and then they connected us. And she was like, I have never hired or put a team together. Can you help me put my team together, and so on and so forth? And when I started asking her about just the budget, she had to take extra loans just for the build out, for the equipment and all these things. Had no working capital for hiring or marketing or putting payroll, basically, as for the first couple of months post opening. So imagine the stress and the stress and the fear, right? And the energy that is going to go around if you're starting your business and you have no money left for the operations of your practice. You are at a deficit before you even launch. And guess what? Your chandeliers, your pretty paintings are not going to be the ones interacting with your patients, right? Your front desk person will. And so this particular doctor reached out to me with this information, like having this pitfall made. And I want to make sure that I share her experience with you so that you can make sure that throughout the build out, you determine the budget and you let people work around that budget. Because a lot of times, what I see a lot of vendors or a lot of dentists do is that they go out and they say, I have $250,000 for my equipment. The equipment reps are going to go in and make sure that they give you all of the equipment that is precisely for that amount. But what if you are cautious and you determine and you have a preset budget and you say, this is how much I feel that I should be spending, right? To give yourself that wiggle room to be able to move money around, because there are a lot of contingencies and unknowns that do arise, and you want to be able to protect that working capital. And a lot of other, vendors or people will tell you, you don't need to work with a consultant per se, because I can guide you through the process, but they're maximizing your budget to the fullest and not focusing on the operational aspect of things, which that's where the return on investment is. So if you have the nice CVT scanner and you have your iTero and you have all of this fancy equipment, but you haven't taken the time to set up your budget, have enough working capital to hire someone that is going to help you sell the services, or have optimized the reimbursement so that you're able to pay back sooner for the investment of that piece of equipment, then where's the glory, right? So it's very important that you understand that this is a pitfall, that you have to, as the CEO, as the visionary, as the business owner, wear the hat and understand that you need to create a budget, right? So delaying that financial planning increases the risk of that momentum that you can potentially miss out on by not taking measures and planning financially ahead of time. So very big on stressing the pre-opening phase because we want a full schedule, but all of the things that you don't see are going to, it's interconnected and it's going to affect everything later on. I had a dentist reach out to me a couple of years ago and she said, oh, I have this pressing issue. A lot of my team members just constantly leave and leave. And I said, so what, like, how is the office? She was already 2 years into her startup, working 2 days a week, not being able to maintain a full-time schedule for her employees because she had to work other jobs in other places. Again, if you don't save for the marketing and all these things and build your business, that's one of the mistakes or consequences. Your team, you're competing with a lot of people with a lot more heavy pockets and resources to put you in a position where you cannot offer longevity in the workforce. You're telling your dental assistants, come this day, no, don't come that day. Patients cancel, patients didn't cancel. Same thing for your front desk. It is not their fault. You have not taken measures to protect your finances or done your due diligence to do the work to be able to ensure that there are patients to sustain a full schedule for your employees and for your patients, right? That's another pitfall. And I know that I'm derailing a little bit, but when I came to this doctor's office during one of my visits to her, one of the things that I noticed was like whenever a patient was sitting on the chair, it was almost like the lights in her eyes would glow and would want to take a 65-year-old woman through an extensive treatment because her schedule was empty. It is not the patient's fault that your schedule is empty, and they should not be talked into without building the trust and the credibility on their first, and without it being expected to go in and start just doing all of this, extensive treatment plan in one shot without the patients were not coming back. And the dental assistant even said that to me. I was like, where's your recare? Well, patients come in, she does so much work that the patients just don't come back when we try calling them to come. And those are the things that really hurt me to see that. And this is something that could have been avoided. But because there was poor vision, poor planning, poor budgeting, these are some of the consequences later on once she basically owned the dental practice. Let's talk about pitfall number 4, which is hiring too late or hiring the wrong team. Same case study for this particular office. My doctor, again, wanted a fee-for-service model. The person that was sitting at the front desk was an absolute heavy smoker. You can smell like her things, and nothing that I have or to be judgmental, but you cannot be in a practice where you are basically promoting good oral hygiene and aesthetic procedures, and you want to be fee for service, and you make all these mistakes that lead to you, or you don't understand insurance, or you don't want to, for whatever reason, you hire the wrong person. That is going to tank your business. And so you want to avoid at all costs, one, hiring late, because once you hire late, you become desperate. Hiring without a budget or an income for you to be competitive in the marketplace, right? Or hiring the wrong team person, meaning someone, I hear this all the time I not anymore, but I used to hear this a lot by vendors and in the industry that would say you just need someone that to answers the phones and checks in the patients and so on and so forth. Everything else they can learn. I get that, but what they're doing is they're undermining the importance of the representation of your culture, your model, and of you as an individual. Before the patient experiences you as a clinician, they're going to have to go and have a conversation with this person. And if they're not in alignment aesthetically and customer orientation and the vibe for the practice itself, you're going to hit a pitfall. And that's going to be a mistake that is going to cost you financially. And every time you lose an employee, there is time and money. I don't know what the last report I saw was on the amount. How much does it cost when you basically hire and need to rehire someone within the, I think it's like $15,000 or something per employee or something like that. So every time as a startup that you are having to transition or have turnover with your team, there is money going out, all of the investment of the training, all the efforts of the systems that you've tried to put in place. That first interaction with that patient that may have led to a good review, and then that person is inconsistent, not in your office all the time. Those are things that are going to hurt your reputation, and you want to avoid that. So what I always tell my doctors is you hire slow, you fire fast. Hiring is like dating, and dating takes time because you need to be in alignment. It's an investment on both ends. The framework that I use and how we help our doctors, because a lot of, consultants, they basically tell you, okay, now is the time to hire. So go ahead and place your ad and do your thing. And here are some questions you can ask. No, my clients have a funnel that the employees have to go through, the candidates, of loops and hoops to make sure that they're checking every box. I have a conversation with them. I need to make sure that they're in alignment with the business model, that they understand all these things. And I set the doctor up as the expert, or as someone that already has systems. I don't know if you've been through my previous webinars. I always remember Ashley and one of my clients, front desk persons, that when I had one of the post break even calls, like I work with my doctors until they break even in production, right? Like until they collect and produce the amount that they need to collect in order to break even. And ideally, I want to see that within the first 3 to 6 months of opening. That's kind of like my standard of how I want my doctors to be predictably profitable faster. And so Ashley said to me, Maritza, if it wasn't because the doctor was working with you, I would have not taken this position. She's someone that had like 10 years of experience in the dental industry, had an offer from a DSO that was offering her even medical benefits. And she said, but I wanted more growth and more challenge. And because the doctor was working with a consultant like you, with all the systems, the onboarding process, the offer letter, the system for the interview process, all of these things made me feel comfortable knowing that I was coming into a place that, even though it's a startup, she's new to the business, I'm new to the office, there are already proven systems in place that gave me the confidence to be able to feel comfortable taking on this unknown opportunity, right? So these are the small things that if you don't have the right support, or if you hire too late and you don't know, and this is one of those things with startups specifically, or even acquisitions, and I'll share with you guys an example of both. So for a startup practice, you feel like, oh my gosh, when can I start doing, like you feel like you want to be able to have your certificate of occupancy, that what am I going to have them do? What is the process going to look like? How do you time it? And when do you get started? It's one of those pitfalls that I wish a lot of dentists knew about, when to do it yourselves. And if you're not working with me and you want to gain more, I'm an open book. You can always reach out to me. I'm not very active in social media and even in my groups because I have a lot of things going on, but I'm someone that you can definitely get in touch with, and you'll be able to find me. And I'm a fire hose. I'm going to give you all the tips and tools you need to walk away with something strategic to apply and be able to see benefits right away, right? So excuse me. And so payroll and all of these things are really scary when you're getting started and when you're doing a startup. On the acquisition side, I've had this experience with 2 doctors so far that have done acquisitions. In one office, we cleaned out the entire practice, but the doctors only did it And once we had a meeting during one of our evening calls with all the moms putting our kids to bed and so on, one of the doctors, Dr. Sarah, said, Maritza, again, if it wasn't for you, I would have kept the team, because I felt that if I didn't, they were the legacy employees, and we came in not knowing what to expect, but knowing that you would help us with the interviews, or if we needed to have someone check in on the patients for the next day and do my team or myself do the verification and have like a virtual team as a companion and as a guide and as a support partner, then it gave me the confidence to not inherit that team member and be able to start fresh under my culture on the acquisition side. So the pitfall is, if you wait too long, it takes time. It takes time to be able to find someone that is going to be a good fit for you. And I have some tools and strategies. I may do it. Let me know in the chat if you want me to talk a little bit more about my strategies specifically for that process on one of my upcoming webinars. But very, very interesting. A lot of stories of, people and the hiring piece. So this is one of those things that I want you guys to avoid. And I'm going to share with you some things on how to flip it around and what I've done with one of my case studies so that you can see it real time. And then pitfall number 5, again, there's so many things that we can spend the entire night together. I did my workshop last year, which was 2 days, and still there was a lot to unpack. And I'm putting my new workshop again for October here in New York City. For those of you who are interested, let me know later on. But there's a lot to unpack and time is limited. So our 5th pitfall to cover to end for tonight's webinar is not marketing until it's too late. I cannot stress this enough to all of you who are watching, myself included. We think that, if we build it, they'll come. And that is an absolute myth. You have the responsibility to get your name out there and to let people experience you as a human being, share your journey and all of the things that you're doing, because people like them. And you are most likely looking to service and treat people from your community that you want to serve, but they need to know that. And a lot of times startups get caught up in waiting for the next milestone to kick in. I understand if you may have what is that word that I'm looking for? Like a covenant, like you cannot, like a restricted covenant, and you cannot start marketing early. I know that a lot of you want to keep things very confidential until this time, but it doesn't hurt to start building your brand, to start building your name. And again, I say this culturally speaking, I'm a very uncomfortable person in front of the cameras, but it has been years of me by trial and error, knowing and understanding that if I am not putting myself out there, there are a lot of great marketers who are taking the bulk of the marketplace and underserving doctors in the way that I would 10 times better. And so that's a struggle that I personally have to reckon with, right? And that's the same thing that I tell my doctors. Because we've worked, they've been our associates, they've been our coworkers, right? The doctors that are great on the talk, and then they put on a filling, and a week later, the patient is strolling back in, and you have to replace the filling that someone else did. So clinically, there's an issue, but they have the charisma. And I also do understand that a lot of us, myself included, are not necessarily like the social media butterflies that are required. But there are systems and there are processes and frameworks that you can start to apply in order for you to make sure that you are going to have a waiting list, if you will, of people for your grand opening. But it is your responsibility to gain a piece of the market share. And it is not going to be by setting up your practice and letting people find you. You got to be comfortable getting out there and doing this. So pre-opening marketing is crucial for you to avoid having an empty schedule. One of the things that I tell my doctors to do is I just had a text message exchange with my doctors. I was like, we need to get that banner going. We have to go into the Chamber of Commerce, even if the office is open. And even the phone systems, like I have people from my team answer the phone calls, and we already are a few weeks before, while we're hiring the team, we work as a support team for the operational side of things. Again, this is where the return on investment is for all of you looking to open your practices out there. And so it's extremely important that you don't, just because you feel like you're doing this alone, or you hired a consultant that primarily focuses on the build out or the walls, if you will, make sure that you have someone that is willing to help you and support you through the operational development of your practice, because that's where the return on the investment of everything, every dollar is going to be in. Okay. So very important for you to not to, number one, shift your mindset from I'm going to build a practice, my friends are going to come over. The marketplace, we make decisions based on reviews, on other people's experience, and it is our job and responsibility to make sure that we are getting social proof by staying relevant in the marketplace, that we show authority by showing our, when you're studying or when you're taking a class and all of the things, your courses that you're taking, right? Your credentials, right? Your before and afters as an individual. It is your responsibility to start doing that, because once you're getting ready to open, it's going to help you start getting people building that momentum. So, what we do with our clients is kind of like a pre-launch type thing. We support them on the social media side. But ultimately, you cannot outsource the responsibility of the outcome of your business to anyone. So thinking that if I hire my marketing company, it is their responsibility to make sure that I get the patients. If I hire my front desk person, it is their responsibility to make sure that I am getting the, conversions up. It is ultimately you who is responsible for the outcome of your business. And if you want a tangible full schedule, I want you to start thinking and considering what pitfalls, what mistakes you've made on the pre-opening phase, and how you can reverse engineer some of those things, because it is never too late. As long as your office, you're paying the bills, there are people that need dentistry, people that need jobs, and we need good leadership. So there's always an opportunity for you to reverse engineer and get started on the right track. So pitfall number 5, I've seen many dentists wait until the office is ready, they hire the team and all of these things, and then marketing, even with the SEO and the Google reviews and things, it takes a minimum of 6 months. And the algorithm of Google and all these things are going to always prioritize those who are more active using it, or like the longevity for how long they've been had their pages and so on and so forth, and the content. And so it is never too early to start marketing and start planning for those things. And so yeah, I think those are the 5 pitfalls that I wanted to cover with you guys tonight. How you're going to pivot this, and I think I had someone from the thing. I had you'll also be able to. Okay, sorry. So sorry about that. Okay, so how do we pivot and what do we need to do instead? Number 1, we're going to do exercises to put together our vision and our plan. Reverse engineer, what do I want in 10 years? What do I want in 5 years? What do I want in 3 years? And what is my first year going to look like? I did a webinar called The Path to Ownership, from breaking ground to breaking $1 million in your first year. And it's how we were able to reverse engineer a $1 million revenue blueprint for a doctor to be able to follow and achieve being profitable and breaking $1 million. It's not about the money. It's about who you need to become in order to achieve those milestones. So always start with your vision and your plan. Number 2, you're going to want to select a smart location, right? Doing the feasibility assessment, doing the market research, competitive research, understanding all of the nuances of the area where you're opening, and creating alignment between the needs of the community and what you're willing and are wanting to offer and who you want to offer it to. The other one is budgeting and financial planning and preparation, not shying away from the numbers and creating a strategy around your findings, how you're going to manage the spending for the build out, how you're going to break even and work with all of the vendors that you're going to hire, how you're going to optimize your reimbursement so that you're getting paid more for the services that you're doing. All of that is going to help you do that. That's how you're going to pivot. That's what you're going to focus on instead. The team and the culture. You need people pre-opening, your team of advisors, your attorney, the people that are going to help you negotiate the lease, which is important, the equipment that they're willing to work with you on your budget and not setting theirs. All of those things are important pre-opening. But ultimately, after you open, having that working capital and hiring a team that is going to be an extension and it's going to enhance the perceived value of everything that you want to offer, your vision, it's going to be an important aspect of you being successful. And then the pre-opening marketing and post-opening support. Who are you going to reach out to that can help you start promoting your business before, during, and after, passing the torch to your team, and always having that collaborative, way of thinking and behaving so that everyone sees you as a great leader and your business as a vehicle for everyone to get to places, fun, profitable, fulfilling places, right? Through your journey. Because it's a big responsibility and I want you to enjoy it along the way. But making these mistakes is definitely going to push you back, and I want you to avoid those tonight. So this is the 13 practical steps to launching a practice. And this is basically, we have, again, all of the systems, the checklists, all of the support done for you and with you to make sure that you are hitting all of these milestones throughout the entire journey of you starting your practice, right? And again, it starts with your personal vision. You hire the right team, you understand your numbers, you create the systems. All of these things are sort of like in between, right? But you want a tangible full schedule, patients writing, raving reviews about you, your team, being able to offer them those benefits, those milestones of you, like not feeling such a small business owner that you can say, hey, you need medical insurance, you could have it, let's sign up for that, because there's growth within your organization. You're no longer an associate, you are a business owner. My husband said something to me that I could never forget. No matter how small you think your business is, think about the guy from Amazon. He started in his basement. And you are the CEO, whether it's two team operations or 100 people, you're still adding value to the community. And you've taken a risk that it's worth celebrating and owning and really focusing on what the next steps are in preparing for. Now, this is one of the case studies that I enjoy the most. Dr. Shannon Thorson, she's a myofunctional holistic dentist in Georgia, fee-for-service practice. She hired me and she wasn't sure she wanted to hire a consultant. But we went through these entire steps together. And now I saw her recently in a magazine for the Jew dental entrepreneur women. And I was so celebrating her journey, because we sat like tears crying with every vendor, like trying to negotiate the equipment parts and the contractor and the timeline for this and the team, the hiring, all of those things. We went through this journey together, and she's now a thriving practice owner, a great leader to every team member in her team, enjoying family life, speaking and teaching, doing a lot of the things that she always loved to do. And it's because she knew that there was a proven process and a framework that worked. She basically reached out for help, and the rest is history. And the next thing I would love to do is to take your questions, but make an invitation for those of you who are in your journey or are thinking about owning your first dental practice. Don't be afraid. There is always help out there, and there are ways for you to make it work. And I'm more than happy to be a source of ideas, of support, guide, and again, you guide through this process so that you don't feel like you're doing it alone. And so for those of you who want to ask me questions, now is the time, because I want to make sure that we have, I answer everyone's questions here if there are any. Any questions? Anyone has anything to add? I'd love to hear what was your biggest, takeaway from our time tonight. And let me know in the chat. Anyone? I'll ask you to unmute yourself. Okay. No one? Well, if no one has any questions, then what I would say is that thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been my pleasure to have you, and your time is very valuable. So I hope you walked away with some tools and strategies. If you have any questions or anything, reach out to me, and I am happy to share any of the resources and tools that I typically share with my doctors, whether it's checklists, frameworks of any kind for any of the milestones where you're in. So by all means, reach out to me. Don't be a stranger. And I know that you care about your success because you took the time to be with me tonight, and you could have been anywhere else, but you are with me. So I'm very grateful and thankful for your time tonight. So thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and let's make sure we hit the ground running. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.